So, what happens when the official story, the one everyone's supposed to believe, just doesn't sit right with millions of people? Ever since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, this whole other story, this counter-narrative, has just exploded online. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to unpack all the claims, the connections, and the big questions that are fueling this theory. A theory that puts his wife, Erica Kirk, right at the center of everything. And just to be clear, we're basing this all directly on the information that's been circulating out there. Right. This quote, this is really the question at the heart of all of it. It's about this fundamental disbelief in the official story. I mean, think about it. Charlie Kirk's assassination on September 10th, 2025 happened right in front of everyone, witnessed by millions. But people who've dug into this say the details, they just don't make sense. You've got everything from a supposed magic bullet to a shooter who'd never fired a gun at a person before. And this, right here, is the crack in that official narrative where all the doubt just started pouring in. All right, so to really get a handle on this whole theory, we're going to break it down into 5 key parts. First, we'll look at the public tragedy versus the private suspicions. Then we're going to dive deep into Erica Kirk's puzzling past. After that, we'll follow the money and the politics, the alleged motives. Then we'll get into the assassination plot theory itself. And finally, we'll look at all these bizarre events and ask that big question. Is this all just coincidence, or is it a conspiracy? Okay, so Section 1, a public tragedy, private suspicions. Let's start at the beginning with the official story. The authorities, well, they painted a very simple, very tragic picture. A lone gunman, a disturbed kid, basically an open and shut case. But almost right away, this counter-narrative started bubbling up online, questioning literally every piece of that story, and asking one huge question: how can a supposedly simple tragedy have so many parts that just seem unbelievable? And you can see the clash right here, the two narratives side by side. On one hand, the official story is super simple. But on the other, wow, the doubts are fueled by these really specific troubling details. We're talking about a so-called magic bullet that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Then there are these text messages where Charlie Kirk supposedly wrote, "They're gonna kill me." And on top of that, reports that right before he died, he turned down a huge donation from foreign sources. You see, these are the little threads that online sleuths just started pulling and pulling. So all those doubts, all those threads, they quickly led people to focus on one person at the very center of this theory, his wife, Erica Kirk. Now, people who believe in this conspiracy have dug deep into our history, searching for red flags. So for this next section, it's kind of like we're opening up a case file on all the details from her past that they say are deeply suspicious. And when they look into her past, 4 key things keep popping up again and again. First, you've got her family's supposed deep connections to the U.S. defense industry. Second, some really serious allegations against a charity she was running. Third, the fact that she was a beauty pageant winner during an era with ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And fourth, her job in real estate, working for the exact same firm that sold off Epstein's properties. See a pattern here? Well, theorists certainly do. Okay, so let's dig into that first one, her family ties. The source material claims her parents were consultants for the Department of Defense and Homeland Security. Her mom's company apparently specialized in EMP technology. Meanwhile, her dad is said to have worked for Raytheon. Yeah, the same contractor behind Israel's Iron Dome. Now, for the people pushing this theory, this isn't just a boring family history. To them, it's a potential link to the deep state. All right, next up is her charity work. When she was just 18, Erica started a charity called Everyday Heroes Like You. But one part of it, the Romanian Angels Ministry, got hit with some very serious, though I should say unsubstantiated allegations that it was a front for human trafficking. The claim was that it was rehoming orphans to places like the UK and Israel. And all this led to speculation that Erica herself was eventually banned from even entering Romania. And then you have the alleged connections to Jeffrey Epstein, and there are 2 of them that the theory points to. First, back in 2012, she won Miss Arizona USA. That pageant was owned by Donald Trump at the time, during a period when people claim Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were using those pageants to scout for victims. Then, fast forward, and her career takes her to the Corcoran Group, which just so happens to be the exact real estate agency hired to sell off all of Epstein's properties after he died. Okay, so with a background that theorists find, let's say, suspicious, the next question is always the big one, right? What's the motive? Who benefits? And in this conspiracy theory, there are 2 really powerful, really distinct motives proposed for wanting Charlie Kirk gone. One is all about money, and the other is all about politics. So let's break down those 2 potential motives. On the one hand, you have the financial motive. This theory suggests there was some serious internal corruption going on. Get this, just 8 days before he died, Charlie Kirk apparently announced a full audit of his own organization, TPUSA. Why? Well, there were suspicions that a whopping $8.6 million had been embezzled. Then you have the political motive. This side of the theory claims Charlie was making a huge shift, pivoting away from his long-held pro-Israel stance. He was reportedly rejecting major donors, and in doing so, making some very powerful new enemies. And that brings us to the absolute core of the whole theory, the assassination plot itself. We're moving beyond motive now and into the mechanics of how they say it was done. Because the theorists, they've laid out this incredibly detailed, step-by-step timeline of events that they believe proves this was a coordinated conspiracy. So, according to the theory, the countdown to the assassination actually started weeks earlier. Back on August 25th, a contract for something called a miniaturized anti-personnel explosive device was supposedly fulfilled. But then you hit the final 48 hours, and everything just speeds up. On September 8th, there's an alleged secret meeting. On September 9th, a mysterious high-level government flight touches down nearby. And then, on September 10th, the whole plot comes to its deadly end. Now, a huge piece of this timeline comes from an alleged whistleblower. This person, who claims to be a Green Beret, came forward and said that on September 8th, he personally saw Erica Kirk and Brian Harpole, who was TPUSA's head of security, at Fort Huachuca. And Fort Huachuca isn't just any old place. It's an active U.S. military intelligence base. To the theorists, this alleged meeting is it. This is the moment they believe the final plans were locked in. Okay, so remember that mysterious flight? Well, it was logged as a SAM flight, which stands for Special Air Mission. Now, you need to understand, these flight designations are reserved for the absolute top brass. We're talking the president, the vice president. But the theorists claim that this particular flight, the one that landed near Fort Huachuca on September 9th, wasn't carrying a VIP. No, they believe it was carrying the explosive device itself, delivering the weapon for the final act. But believe it or not, the theory doesn't just end with the assassination. Proponents point to this whole pattern of really bizarre behavior and just plain eerie coincidences that happened after Charlie's death. And they claim it all paints a picture, not of a grieving widow, but of something else entirely. And the list of things that made people's eyebrows shoot up is, well, it's long. You've got the claim that Egyptian government planes shadowed Erica's movements 73 separate times. There's a viral clip of Nicki Minaj where she seems to misspeak and calls Vice President J.D. Vance the assassin. Then there's footage of what some call unusually close interactions between Vance and Erica right after the tragedy. And maybe the weirdest of all, the release of an AI-generated video of Charlie after his death, which basically anoints her as his successor. Now, to push back against the idea that this is all just one big coincidence, theorists point to some data analysis about those Egyptian planes. Analysis reportedly done by Candace Owens. It claims the mathematical probability of 73 overlapping flight paths just happening by random chance is, get ready for this, less than 0.000000001%. So for people who believe the theory, this isn't just some weird fact. They present it as cold, hard mathematical proof of surveillance and maybe even involvement. And so that brings us right back to where we started, with a question. When you look at everything we've just laid out, from the magic bullet to the whistleblower, from the money motives to the political ones, and this whole string of bizarre events that happen afterwards, the narrative that the theorists have built is incredibly dense, it's detailed, and it leaves you with the exact same question they keep asking. How many coincidences does it take before it's not a coincidence anymore?